Have you ever received a call from a number you knew, but the person on the other end couldn't possibly have been the one calling? This is the story of Maya and Liam, a brother and sister who experienced something so chilling it would forever change their understanding of life, death, and the terrifying spaces in between. Our story begins on a dark and stormy night. Wind and rain lashed against the windows of St. Augustine's, a care facility that was usually bustling with life, but now felt eerily deserted. The storm outside was a monster, its howls echoing through the long, empty corridors. Maya and Liam ran through the building, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. They were heading for the third floor, their hearts pounding in their chests. A sense of urgency, a feeling of deep unease, pushed them forward. They weren't sure why they were there. They only knew they had to be. The third-floor hallway was dimmer than usual, unnervingly quiet. It was as if the storm's fury couldn't penetrate this space, like sound itself was afraid to enter. The silence was heavy, oppressive, and it clung to the air like a shroud. Then they saw it. Their grandmother's room. The door was ajar, a dark sliver in the dim light. A cold dread washed over them as they pushed it open. The room was empty. The bed, usually occupied by their beloved grandmother, Evelyn Carter, was neatly made, but starkly vacant. The personal items on her nightstand seemed out of place without her presence. It was wrong. All of it felt wrong. A voice from behind made them jump. "You two shouldn't be here after hours." They turned to see a nurse, her expression a mixture of surprise and sternness. She had been sitting at the dimly lit nurse's station, almost invisible in the shadows. Maya's voice was a barely audible tremor. We just got a call," she managed to say, her hand instinctively clutching her phone in her pocket. "From our grandmother's number." The nurse's stern expression softened into one of confusion, then pity. She let out a long, slow sigh and looked at them with sad eyes. She spoke softly, her words hitting them with the force of a physical blow. "Honey, Evelyn Carter passed away at 6:42 p.m. this evening." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Passed away. It couldn't be true. They had just spoken to her a few days ago. She was getting better, the nurse continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Her personal effects, including her phone, have been in our possession since then." She walked over to a locked cabinet at the nurse's station, retrieved a small plastic bag, and placed it on the counter. Inside was a familiar, well-worn smartphone. It was Evelyn's phone, the same cracked screen protector, the same faded floral case. Maya's hands shook as she took her own phone out. "Say me." Number 2. The nurse picked up Evelyn's phone from the bag and pressed the power button. Nothing. The screen remained black. "The battery's been dead for hours," she said, confirming the impossible. "There's no way it could have made a call. A dead phone. A grandmother who had passed hours ago. Yet, a call had been made." Maya and Liam stood there, stunned into silence, the nurse's words echoing in the unnaturally quiet hallway. The storm outside raged on, but inside, a new and far more terrifying storm was just beginning to brew in their minds. The next morning, the world felt gray and muted. Grief was a heavy blanket, but underneath it, the gnawing mystery of the phone call remained. It was then that Maya received another call, this time from an unknown number. It was the head of security for St. Augustine's. His voice was low and serious. "We reviewed the security cameras from last night," he said. "I think you should come in and see this." They met him in a small, cramped security office, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and humming electronics. Multiple monitors displayed black and white feeds from around the facility. The head of security, a man named Mr. Henderson, queued up a specific file. The screen showed the hallway outside Evelyn's room, then switched to the camera inside. The timestamp read to 15 a.m. The footage showed Evelyn's room, just as they had found it, but with one stark difference. Evelyn's body was still lying peacefully in the bed. Maya felt a fresh wave of grief wash over her. Liam put a comforting hand on her shoulder. They watched this silent, grainy footage, The only sound, the low hum of the computer. At exactly 2:16 a.m., the overhead light in the room began to flicker. It wasn't a gentle flutter. It was a violent, erratic strobe, plunging the room into alternating moments of harsh light and deep shadow. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Mr. Henderson leaned forward, his eyes glued to the screen. Then, at 2:17 a.m., the door to Evelyn's room, which had been firmly closed, began to creak open. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if pushed by an unseen hand. From the dark hallway, a figure stepped into the room. It was tall, with the general shape of a human, but that's where the similarity ended. It moved with an unsettling, unnatural grace. Maya and Liam stared, their blood running cold. The figure approached the bed, and then it turned, ever so slightly, giving the camera a partial view of its head. Its face. There wasn't one. No eyes. No nose. No mouth. Just a smooth, pale, and utterly blank expanse of skin, like a mannequin's head that had been polished over and over. A guttural sound of fear escaped Maya's lips. Liam's hand tightened on her shoulder, his own face a mask of disbelief and horror. The faceless creature leaned over Evelyn's still body. It didn't seem to touch her, but it hovered there for a few agonizing seconds, its blank head tilted as if it were listening or observing something they couldn't see. Then, in a movement that was both slow and terrifyingly sudden, it turned its head directly toward the security camera. The smooth, featureless face filled the screen. There was nothing there, but Maya felt a powerful, chilling sensation of being seen, of being known by this impossible thing. At that exact moment, the footage erupted into a chaotic mess of static and screeching electronic noise. The screen went white, then black, then flashed with distorted lines. When the picture finally returned, just seconds later, the creature was gone. It hadn't walked out. It hadn't faded away. It was simply not there anymore. The room was empty, save for the bed. But something had changed. Evelyn's body was no longer lying down. She was sitting upright. Her back was ramrod straight, her head tilted slightly, her empty eyes staring at the far wall, as if she had tried to get up, or perhaps as if she had been pulled into that position. Mr. Henderson pointed a trembling finger at the bottom of the screen. The timestamp read 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 32 seconds. Maya's eyes widened. She fumbled for a phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely navigate the screen. She pulled up her call log. That it was. The missed call from her grandmother's number. The time of the call, 2:17 a.m. The realization dawned on them with the force of an ice-cold wave. Liam's whisper was hoarse, filled with a new and profound terror. "She wasn't calling us," he said, his eyes still locked on the frozen image of his grandmother sitting upright in her deathbed. "She was warning us. A warning from beyond the grave. A final, desperate message. Sent not by her, but through her. A warning about the faceless thing that walks the quiet halls of St. Augustine's in the dead of night." They left the security office in a daze, the world outside seeming too bright, too normal. But they knew it wasn't. They knew that there are things that wait in the shadows, things that have no face, and that sometimes, when a phone rings from a number that shouldn't be able to call, it's not a loved one reaching out. It's a warning. Maya and her younger brother Liam hadn't slept in what felt like forever. For 48 straight hours, they'd been running on fumes, their world tilting on its axis. Just a few hours ago, at St. Augustine Memorial Hospital, their grandmother, Ebeline Carta, had passed away. They knew it was coming, the doctors had prepared them, but the finality of it was a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left them breathless. She wasn't just their grandmother, she was their anchor, the only truly stable, loving adult they had ever known. Now, they were adrift. They sat on the worn-out couch in Maya's small apartment, the silence inside a stark contrast to the raging storm outside. Rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance, mirroring the turmoil in their hearts. The only other sound was their own quiet, ragged breathing. The clock on the cable box glowed with the numbers to 17 a.m. It was the dead of night, a time when the world was supposed to be asleep. Then, a shrill, jarring sound cut through the quiet. Maya's phone, lying face down on the coffee table, began to ring. The vibration buzzed against the wood. Liam looked up from the floor where he was staring, his eyes wide and bloodshot. "Who calls this late?" he muttered, his voice raspy. It was a good question. All their friends and family knew what had happened. No one would dare to call at such an hour unless it was a dire emergency. Maya didn't move at first. She just stared at the phone, a strange sense of dread creeping over her. The ringing felt intrusive, wrong. Slowly, reluctantly, she reached out and turned the phone over, and then her heart didn't just lurch, it stopped. Cold. Across the screen, in glowing white letters, were 2 words. Calling. Grandma. She froze, her entire body locking up. It was impossible. It couldn't be real. Liam leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen, his face a mask of disbelief. That has to be a glitch, right? He stammered. Her phone. It's still at the hospital. In air room. We left it there. Maya tried to form a word, any word, but her throat was a tight knot of fear. The ringing continued, echoing through the small apartment, each chime louder and more unnatural than the last. It felt like a siren, a warning. Her hand trembled as she hovered her thumb over the screen. Part of her screamed not to answer, to throw the phone against the wall, but another, stronger, parta desperate, grieving partner dit. Do kuno. With a shaking finger, she pressed the green answer icon. She lifted the phone to her ear, her breath held tight in her chest. "Hello?" she managed to whisper. For a few long, agonizing seconds, there was only static, a crackling, hissing sound, like a radio tuned between stations. It was the sound of an empty line, of nothingness. Her relief was immediate, but it was cut short. Through the static, a voice emerged. Whispered. So weak, so faint, she almost missed it. A shaking, familiar voice. Maya. Every muscle in Maya's body went rigid. A cold wave washed over her, chilling her to the bone. It was her. It was her grandmother's voice. She would know it anywhere. "Grandma," she breathed out, the word, barely audible. Liam's head snapped up. He stared at her, his expression a mixture of terror and confusion. He mouthed 2 words, his eyes pleading. Put it on speaker. With a trembling hand, Maya fumbled with the phone and pressed the speaker button. The static-filled whisper now filled the room, thin and reedy. Her grandmother's voice came again, low and filled with a terror Maya had never heard before. "Don't let him in." Maya's heart began to hammer against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. Liam, moving as if in a trance, reached out and grabbed her hand, his grip ice cold and tight. "Grandma, what are you talking about?" Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "Who? Where are you? Don't let him in." The voice repeated, a little louder this time, more insistent. The terror in it was palpable. "Please, you have to listen to me." Suddenly, there was a noise from the other end of the line, a clatter, something falling. Then, a distant, metallic bang, like a door being forced. It was followed by another sound, one that made the hairs on Maya's arms stand up. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The sound of someone walking with purpose, walking toward her grandmother. Maya instinctively clapped a hand over her mouth, a silent scream building in her throat. Beside her, Liam's face was ashen. "Is someone in her room?" he whispered, his eyes wide with horror. The static on the line grew louder, almost deafening. Then, through the noise, they heard Evelyn gasp, a sharp, terrified intake of breath. "He's come in," she choked out. "Who?" "Grandma." "Who's coming?" Maya cried, her voice rising in panic. "Tell us what's happening." As if on cue, the lights in Maya's apartment flickered once, twice, then went out, plunging them into near-total darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of the phone's screen. The storm outside seemed to intensify. A clap of thunder, shaking the building. The voice on the phone was strained, desperate. Don't trust his face. He doesn't have the line suddenly erupted in a deep, guttural, unnatural distortion. A sound that wasn't human. A grinding, electronic screech that scraped at their ear. And through that horrifying noise, the final thing they heard from their grandmother was a scream. It wasn't a long scream. It was short, choked, and abruptly, terrifyingly cut off. The line went dead. Silence. The call had ended. The only sound was the rain and their own frantic, shallow breaths in the dark. Maya's hand went limp. The phone slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. For a moment, they just sat there, paralyzed by a fear so profound it was almost physical. The impossible had just happened, and it had ended in a nightmare. Then, Liam broke the spell. He shot to his feet, his body coiled with adrenaline and a fierce, protective energy. He was already grabbing his jacket from the back of a chair. His voice was low, determined, and cut through the fear. "We're going to the hospital," he said, his eyes finding hers in the gloom. Now, there was no room for argument. They had to know what just happened. They had to know who was in that room.